Hey everyone, and welcome to another explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today because we're about to explore a massive, highly dynamic, and honestly fascinating world that is almost entirely invisible to us. It's happening right now, completely silently, directly beneath our feet. We walk over it every single day, totally oblivious to the incredible engineering taking place in the dark. To kick things off, I want you to think about this for a second. How is a common garden carrot biologically related to a massive 80-foot strangler fig tree? I know, it kind of sounds like a trick question, right? But the answer lies in the incredible shape-shifting nature of plant roots. You see, up to half of a plant's total biomass can be completely hidden underground. That means when you're looking at a lush forest or a grassy meadow, you're literally only seeing half the picture. The real heavy lifting, it's happening entirely out of sight. All right, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. First, we'll cover the hidden half of plants. Second, the anatomy of a root tip. Third, taproots versus fibrous roots. Fourth, bizarre root modifications. And finally, extreme survival and depths. Section 1, the hidden half of plants. Let's start by redefining what a root actually is. We tend to think of them as just static, dead wood, but they are absolutely not. They are dynamic, living, shape-shifting life support systems. There's a very clear biological divide between the visible shoot system, the stem, leaves, and flowers, and the hidden root system below ground. Because plants are entirely stationary, they can't just get up and walk over to a stream when they get thirsty or forage for food when they're hungry. Instead, their root system has to actively grow, explore, and penetrate the soil to absorb vital water and dissolved minerals, and then push those life-saving resources upwards to the rest of the plant. Without this hidden network, the visible plant simply doesn't survive. Section 2, anatomy of a root tip, down at the microscopic level. So how exactly do these roots navigate dense, dark soil to find those resources? Well, a root doesn't just push through randomly. It's actually a highly coordinated, relentless biological drill. There are very distinct, specialized zones within a growing root tip that make this happen. Let's break down exactly how this structure works. Walking sequentially upward from the very bottom of the root tip, we start with the root cap. Think of this as the vanguard. It physically protects the tender root tip as it forces its way through abrasive dirt. And as its cells slough off, they actually create a slimy surface that provides vital lubrication. Right behind that shield is the region of meristematic activity. This is the growth engine, a zone of rapid, continuous cell division. Next up is the region of elongation. Here, those newly formed cells rapidly lengthen and expand, and this provides the actual physical force that pushes the root tip forward into new territory. Moving a bit further up, we hit the region of maturation, where these cells stop growing and differentiate into specialized tissues. And finally, we get to the root hairs. These are incredibly delicate, thread-like structures that vastly increase the root surface area. This is where the magic happens. This is where the actual absorption of water and minerals takes place. Section 3, taproots versus fibrous roots. Now that we know how a single root grows, let's look at the whole underground architecture. Plants generally employ one of two main blueprints. First is the taproot system. Think of this like a deep-sea anchor. It's one primary, thick, straight root that dives deep into the earth with smaller lateral roots branching off it. It's fantastic for deep anchorage and reaching low water tables, and you'll commonly find this in dicot plants like dandelions or oak trees. On the flip side, we have the fibrous root system. Instead of one main anchor, this is a dense, shallow, mat-like network where all the roots are roughly the same size. It is brilliant at rapidly absorbing surface nutrients and binding the soil together to prevent erosion. This system is basically universal in monocots like grasses and wheat. Section 4, bizarre root modifications and evolutionary adaptations. Throughout evolutionary history, roots have been forced to adapt to extreme challenges, modifying themselves to perform completely different functions. For instance, a taproot might become really fleshy and swollen just to store food, which allows the plant to survive unfavorable conditions or dormancy. A classic example is the fusiform root. This is a root that's widest right in the center and tapers at both ends. So the next time you slice up a radish for your salad, you are actually eating a fusiform taproot specifically modified for carbohydrate storage. Then we have the napiform root. This one is shaped almost exactly like a spinning top. It's very spherical and wide at the very top, and then it suddenly tapers down to a sharp point at the end. The humble turnip is a perfect everyday example of this highly specialized food storage shape. And bringing it back to the question we asked at the very beginning of this explainer, the conical root. This root is broad at the base and slowly, evenly tapers to the apex. Yup, this is the carrot. Its iconic, cone-like form perfectly follows its biological function of packing away as much food and water as possible underground. But roots don't just modify for food storage, they also grow out of places you'd literally never expect. These are called adventitious roots, roots that arise out of sequence from stems or even leaves. Some modify into tuberous shapes for food storage, like the sweet potato. Others provide extreme mechanical support. The massive banyan tree, for example, drops prop roots straight down from its branches all the way to the ground just to support its heavy canopy. And then there are special adaptations, like epiphytic roots on orchids that never even touch the soil at all. So, the crucial point here is that roots have evolved what can only be described as biological superpowers. In swampy, oxygen-starved soils, mangroves push roots called pneumators up above the water just to breathe air. Epiphytic roots act like giant sponges, pulling moisture directly out of the humid atmosphere. Sucking roots act as parasites, physically penetrating host plants to steal their nutrients. Floating roots look like white cotton and provide buoyancy for aquatic plants. And incredibly, some roots, when exposed to the sun, actually develop chlorophyll and become photosynthetic, essentially acting like leaves to make food. I mean, they completely defy our normal expectations. Section 5. Extreme survival and depths. Let's see what happens when these structures are pushed to their absolute biological limits. Consider this. How on earth do plants survive the scorching, completely water-starved conditions of the desert? The answer is an epic evolutionary duel between the two main root architectures we discussed earlier, the taproot and the fibrous root. Both have found uniquely successful ways to cheat death in the desert. These two strategies adapt to drought in brilliant ways. The desert taproot takes the deep approach. It drills down 20 to 30 feet underground to reach deep soil reservoirs. Because it's so deep, that soil stays consistently moist for months after heavy rainfall, totally protected from the baking sun above. Conversely, the desert fibrous root takes the shallow approach. It spreads incredibly wide, just inches below the surface. Why? Because when a light, quick rainfall hits the desert, the water evaporates almost instantly. The fibrous root network acts like a massive net, catching and absorbing that fleeting surface moisture before the sun can bake it away. They are completely opposite strategies, but both achieve masterful survival. And when we talk about reaching deep, I really want to leave you with this staggering number: 68 meters. That is roughly 223 feet, or the equivalent of a 20-story building. This is the record-breaking depth of the taproot of the Bajia albitrinca tree, discovered in the Kalahari Desert. Just imagine the sheer biological force required to push a root tip cell by cell through 68 meters of completely dry earth just to find a drink of water. It is truly awe-inspiring. So the next time you step outside, take a moment to look at the trees, the grass, or even the weeds cracking through the sidewalk. Remember that what you were seeing is really only half the story. I challenge you to ask yourself, what hidden shape-shifting networks, what deep-diving taproots and breathing pneumatophores are working, communicating, and surviving right beneath your shoes? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep exploring, stay curious, and I'll catch you in the next one.